The chamber of the Galactic Council stood as one of the oldest structures in the galaxy. It was vast, built from living stone and metal harvested from stars long dead. Every wall carried the echoes of decisions that had shaped empires for thousands of years. In this place, rulers had risen and fallen, species had been silenced or spared, and the future of countless worlds had been decided with a single vote. On this day, the hall was crowded. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in their high seats, each one cloaked in colors of power, tradition, and fear. Their voices, usually calm and controlled, now buzzed with unease. A whisper was spreading through the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. That whisper carried a single word, a single name that unsettled them all. Humanity. The Galactic Council had dealt with young races before. Most of them bent easily under pressure. Most of them begged for mercy. They signed treaties, paid tribute, and accepted the rule of their elders. But humanity had not done any of these things. Humanity had broken expectations. For months, reports had reached the Council. Human fleets patrolling regions where they were forbidden to go. Human colonies growing on planets marked as sacred. Human weapons that should have been impossible for a young species to build. Each report came with the same message. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would not kneel. And now, for the first time, a human stood before them. The great doors at the far end of the chamber opened with a slow groan, and the sound carried like thunder. Every eye turned. Every whisper stopped. The silence that followed was heavy and sharp, as if the air itself had been cut. From the doorway, a figure walked forward. The human representative was not dressed in shining armor or ceremonial robes. He wore a plain suit, dark and simple, the kind of clothing that carried no weapon and no crown. Yet his steps were steady, unhurried, and each one echoed louder than the last. His gaze moved across the chamber, meeting the eyes of creatures who had ruled for ages, and he did not look away. The Council had seen many forms of courage, but this was not courage. This was something else, something deeper, something older. The elder of the Arcanes, a being older than entire human civilizations, shifted uneasily in her seat. Her kind had faced wars with titans, had crushed rebellions, had bent planets to their will. Yet as she watched the human move forward, a strange feeling crawled into her chest, a feeling she had almost forgotten. It was doubt. The human reached the center of the chamber where the floor was marked with a circle of light. That circle had been designed as a place of judgment. Every being who had stood there before had bent under the weight of it. They had lowered their heads, begged forgiveness, or pleaded for mercy. But this human did not lower his head. He stood tall, shoulders straight, eyes clear. The Council did not expect silence to be so powerful. Yet in that moment his silence spoke louder than their voices. The High Speaker, a towering alien with skin like polished stone, rose from his seat. His voice, deep and cold, broke the silence. Human of Earth, you stand before the Council accused of crimes against the order of the galaxy. You and your people have expanded into forbidden zones, built fleets without permission, and ignored the laws that have held for 10,000 years. What defense do you bring? The chamber waited. The air felt as if it had frozen in place. Delegates leaned forward. Some expected the human to deny the charges. Others expected excuses. Many expected fear. But the human did not rush. He did not stumble over words. Instead, he lifted his head slightly and spoke in a calm, steady voice. My defense, he said, is simple. We are human. The words struck harder than any weapon. They were too plain, too direct. Yet they cut through the chamber like lightning. Whispers rose again, but this time they were louder, sharper. Delegates looked at one another with alarm, some with anger, some with fear. The High Speaker's stone face showed no change, but his hand clenched tight on the railing before him. You do not deny the charges, he said. No, the human answered. I do not, the chamber gasped. No one had ever stood in the circle and admitted guilt so easily. It was madness. It was arrogance. It was something the Council could not understand. The human's eyes moved across the chamber, meeting the gaze of species who had seen stars born and die. You call them crimes, he said, but we call them survival. We are not a people who bow. We are not a people who kneel. We are a people who rise, again and again, no matter the chains, no matter the fire, no matter the weight of the world. The words echoed against the walls, filling the chamber. For a moment the Council was silent, unable to reply. And in that silence a truth settled in their minds. They were afraid. For centuries, the council had ruled through fear. But in that moment, standing in the circle of judgment, the human had turned that fear back upon them. The chamber of the Galactic Council trembled, and none could deny it. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silence after the human's words stretched across the chamber like a shadow. For a moment, no one moved. No one dared to speak. The council, the oldest authority in the galaxy, stood frozen in disbelief. It was not that the human had answered boldly. It was that he had answered without fear. The first voice to break the stillness came from the Carthus delegate, a tall figure whose body shimmered like liquid glass. His kind had been part of the council for 8,000 years. His voice was sharp, cutting through the quiet. "This species," he declared, pointing a long hand at the human, "has grown reckless. They step into systems that do not belong to them. They touch planets that are protected. They mine resources forbidden to young races. Humanity ignores the council as if its word means nothing." Murmurs of agreement rose. Other voices soon joined, layering anger on anger. A winged elder of the Zir added her cry, her wings snapping against her back. "They build fleets as if they prepare for war. We have seen their ships cross borders. We have seen their soldiers train. They march toward power not meant for them." From the far side of the hall, the Zorath, a species whose skin glowed faint red, struck his staff against the floor. "We warned them once. We warned them twice. Yet they did not stop. They are guilty. They are dangerous. They are a fire that will spread." The accusations filled the chamber like a storm. Words turned into shouts. Shouts turned into demands. Some wanted punishment. Others wanted war. The air grew heavy with fury, the sound rising until it felt like the walls themselves would crack. But through it all, the human did not flinch. He stood in the circle of light, his face calm, his shoulders straight. His stillness only deepened the unease, for while the council spoke with rage, he did not even raise his voice in reply. He waited. The high speaker finally lifted a hand, and silence fell again, though the air still trembled with the echoes of anger. His voice, deep and steady, carried across the chamber. "Human," he said, "you hear the charges. Expansion without leave, defiance of treaties, the building of fleets without permission, the breaking of order that has stood for ages. These are crimes that no young species has ever dared to commit. Do you deny them?" The human's eyes lifted, and the chamber seemed to tighten as if it held its breath. "I do not deny," he said. His voice was even, unbroken. "We did these things." The words fell like stones into a lake. Ripples of shock spread across the delegates. Several gasped aloud. Others hissed in disbelief. It was madness to admit such guilt before the council. No race had ever done it. No race had ever dared. The Carthus delegate struck his hand against the railing. "Then there is no more to say. They confess. They must be punished. Their fleets destroyed. Their colonies burned. Let their world be brought to heel." The chamber erupted again. Voices shouted over one another. Some called for total destruction, others for chains. But beneath the noise, a different current began to flow, quiet but steady, unease. For as strange as it was to admit guilt, stranger still was the way the human spoke. No trembling voice, no sign of regret. He stood as if he had not confessed to crimes but to truths. And truths, unlike lies, carried weight. The elder of the Arcanis leaned forward in her seat, her eyes narrowing. She had watched rebellions before. She had crushed more than one. But this did not feel like rebellion. It felt like something deeper, something that could not be broken with fire. The high speaker raised his hand again, and the storm of voices fell silent. His gaze, carved of stone, bore down on the human. "You admit the charges. You stand guilty before the council. Do you understand what this means?" The human nodded once. "I understand." The high speaker's voice hardened. "Then you understand the council has the power to end your people, to bring fleets that would darken your skies, to strike until nothing remains of your home. Earth could be ash before a single sun sets." At this, many delegates leaned forward, eager to see fear at last. They waited for the human to falter, to beg, to collapse under the weight of such a threat. But the human's face did not change. His voice remained calm. "Yes," he said, "we understand." And then he added words that chilled the chamber. "But we do not fear." A silence deeper than before followed. It was not the silence of expectation. It was the silence of unease. the silence of those who realized they had just heard something they could not explain. For countless ages, fear had been the Council's greatest weapon. It had bent worlds. It had kept order. But here, standing before them, was a species that looked into the threat of extinction and did not bend. The chamber trembled again. Not from anger this time, from something colder, something far more dangerous. It was doubt, but we do not fear. The council chamber had never known such silence. Delegates who once roared with anger now sat frozen, their voices trapped in their throats. The humans' words, spoken with no fear, had cut deeper than any blade. For a long moment the chamber did not breathe. The high speaker, whose presence had commanded countless races, found his voice slow to return. His stone-like eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly, human," he said. "But boldness without wisdom is death. Do you truly mean to defy the will of the council?" The human lifted his gaze, calm and steady. His voice came low, but every word carried to the farthest corner of the hall. "We do not defy for arrogance," he said. "We do not stand because we think ourselves greater. We stand because we remember what it is to kneel, and we remember what it costs." The words stirred something uneasy in the chamber. Delegates shifted, their eyes restless. The Carthy's delegate hissed, striking the railing before him. "You speak of history as if it matters here. This is the council. The law is older than your species. Your past has no weight before us." But the human did not turn to him. His eyes swept across the chamber, not in challenge, but in calm remembrance. "My people," he continued, "were once slaves. We were once chained. We were broken by kings, by empires, by tyrants who believed their rule eternal. But each time we rose. Each time we stood. It is written in our blood, in our bones. No power has kept us low forever. And no power ever will." The chamber seemed to shiver. The human's voice was not loud, yet it carried a strange weight, as if every syllable bore the weight of Earth's history. Images rose in the minds of the delegates, not images they had seen, but ones they could feel. Chains snapping, walls falling, fire burning, not in destruction, but in defiance. The elder of the Arcanis leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the figure in the circle. She felt her chest tighten. She had seen rebellions crushed. She had ended entire worlds that dared to rise. Yet this was not rebellion. This was something else. Something that could not be erased with war. The high speaker struck his hand against the railing, his deep voice rolling like thunder. "Enough. You speak of struggle, but you forget where you stand. This council has lasted 10,000 years. Your species has barely crossed the stars. You think your defiance makes you strong, but strength alone will break. If you refuse order, you will be destroyed." Every delegate waited. They leaned forward, hungry to see fear at last. Yet the human did not show fear. He drew in a quiet breath, then spoke again. "You say destruction," he said softly. "But we have known it. You say chains. We have worn them. You say death. We have buried millions. Do you not understand? You threaten us with what we have already survived. You cannot unmake us with fear, because fear is the fire that made us rise." The chamber trembled again, not from the human's voice, but from the words themselves. Some delegates stared at him in disbelief. Others looked away, unable to meet his eyes. A whisper began to move through the chamber, soft but steady. What if he was not boasting? What if every word he spoke was true? The Zorath, his staff glowing red in anger, rose to his feet. "This is madness," he shouted. "They are nothing but children, reckless and loud. Crush them now before their poison spreads." But the elder of the Arcanis raised her hand, stopping him. Her voice, though old and slow, carried heavy weight. "Listen well. Do you not feel it? This is not the voice of a child. This is the voice of a people who cannot be broken. If we strike them, we may not end them. We may make them stronger." A chill spread across the council. For the first time, doubt was not whispered, but spoken aloud. The human stood still in the circle of light, his face calm, his hands at his sides. He did not shout. He did not argue. His silence was stronger than their noise. At last he spoke once more. "You ask us to kneel," he said. "But understand this. We will not. Not to you. Not to anyone. We rise. Always." The words echoed through the chamber, and when they faded, no one rushed to answer. The mighty council, rulers of the stars, sat in uneasy silence, their power shaken by the quiet defiance of a single human. The chamber felt different now. The voices that once carried certainty no longer rang with the same strength. Instead, there was a quiet current beneath the silence, a current of unease. The human had not shouted. He had not threatened. Yet his refusal to kneel had shaken something deep inside the oldest rulers of the stars. For the first time in centuries, the great council was no longer united. The Karthus delegate leaned forward, his glass-like body catching the dim light. "Do you not see what is happening?" he cried, his voice cracking. "This species is a danger to us all. They stand against us openly. If they are not destroyed, others will follow. They will break order. They will bring chaos." His words were fierce, but as they echoed across the chamber, they did not strike as strongly as before. Where once they would have been met with firm nods, now some delegates looked away. Some whispered to their neighbors. The certainty was gone. From the seats of the Zir, a counselor with silver feathers shifted nervously. Her wings twitched against her back as she spoke, her tone hesitant. "But what if the Karthus is wrong? What if destruction will not end them? What if it will make them stronger?" The words struck like a spark in dry grass. Whispers spread again. A council that once spoke as one now carried two voices, two paths. One voice demanded punishment. The other, quieter but growing, carried doubt. The high speaker rose, towering over them all. His stone-like skin glowed faint under the council light. "You speak as if you fear them," he said, his voice sharp. "Fear has no place here. We are the council, we are the law. It is they who should tremble before us." But even as he spoke, his words did not silence the hall. Some still shifted, restless. Some still stared at the human, who stood calm and unbroken in the circle of judgment. And then the human spoke again. "You speak of law," he said softly. "But law built on fear does not last. You think yourselves eternal. But every empire falls. Every chain breaks. Do you know why?" His eyes swept the chamber, his voice low but steady. "Because those who kneel learn to rise, and once they rise, they do not bow again." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Delegates felt it like a weight pressing against their chests. For a moment, even the high speaker did not reply. The Zorath slammed his staff against the floor, fire burning in his voice. "These are the words of rebellion. If we allow them to speak, we allow them to spread their poison. End this now. End them now." His call was sharp, but this time, it did not carry the chamber with him. A few voices joined, demanding war. But others hesitated. Others remained silent. And silence in that chamber was more dangerous than shouting. The elder of the Arcanes, old and wise, finally rose. Her voice was calm but heavy, a voice that had carried across centuries. "Listen," she said. "Do you not feel it? Their words do not come from arrogance. They come from something older. They have faced chains before. They have faced death before. They do not fear us because they have already lived the fear we use to rule." Her words struck harder than any accusation. For the first time, it was not the human who spoke truth, but one of their own. The chamber rippled with unease. The Karthus shouted, the Zorath fumed, the high speaker clenched his fists of stone. But the seed had been planted. Doubt was no longer hidden. It was alive. The human remained still, his silence speaking louder than their fury. Each second he stood without bowing felt heavier than the last. The council, once united in power, now trembled in its own hall, and in that trembling silence a thought began to grow. A thought none dared speak aloud, yet one that moved through every mind. What if the human was right? The council chamber had never felt so heavy. The walls, built to echo power, now carried silence that pressed down on every delegate. For the first time in memory, the rulers of the galaxy could not agree. Their voices, once thunder, had broken into whispers and fragments. At the center, the human still stood. He had not moved since he entered. No chains bound him, no guards held him, yet it seemed as though nothing could make him fall to his knees. His stillness was more commanding than their fury. The High Speaker's deep voice rolled across the chamber again, though this time it carried strain. You think your defiance protects you. You think your words make you strong. But understand this, without the Council, no species has endured. We hold order. We keep the galaxy alive. Without us, there is only chaos. The human's eyes rose to meet his. His voice came soft but steady. Then perhaps it is time for chaos. Gasps broke across the chamber. Delegates shifted sharply in their seats. To speak such words was unthinkable. Yet they could not deny the chill that spread through them. The Zorath struck his staff, fire spilling from its tip. This is treason. Let us end them now. Let fleets march. Let Earth burn. His voice shook with fury, but in his rage there was also fear, as though shouting could drown the unease that had already taken root. Others joined him, their calls sharp and desperate. Yet many remained silent. Silence, once rare in this hall, now spread like a shadow. Those who kept their tongues still were not loyal to humanity, but neither were they certain of the Council's strength. Doubt had grown too deep. The elder of the Arcanis finally rose. Her ancient eyes glimmered with something unreadable. Her voice came slow, deliberate. You say strike them down, but listen closely. Do you not feel it? They do not stand alone. Behind this human, behind their silence, there is a storm waiting. If we strike, we may awaken it. Her words silenced even the Zorath. A storm. That was what many of them feared. Humanity was still young, yes, but their rise had been too fast, their defiance too bold. What if this defiance was not madness, but strength? What if their fire spread to others? The High Speaker clenched his stone fists. He could feel the chamber slipping, the unity of ages breaking apart. He had ruled through fear for longer than stars had burned, but now the fear no longer pointed outward. It had turned inward into the hearts of the Council itself. The human took a step forward, the sound echoing louder than it should have. You call yourselves eternal, he said, but eternity ends. You call yourselves rulers, but rulers fall. You demand we kneel, but today, before this chamber, we tell you the truth. He raised his head, his eyes steady on the High Speaker, on the Council, on the galaxy watching through unseen eyes. Humanity kneels to no one. The words rolled across the chamber, heavy, final, unshakable. Delegates who once roared now sat frozen. Others lowered their gaze, unable to meet his eyes. The silence that followed was not weakness, it was surrender of certainty itself. The High Speaker opened his mouth, but no words came. The chamber, once the unbroken throne of power, had been pierced by something stronger than weapons, stronger than armies. It had been pierced by defiance that could not be bent. The human turned, his step steady, each one echoing as he walked toward the great doors. No guards moved to stop him. No delegate dared raise a hand. He reached the threshold, and for a heartbeat the chamber remained still, as if waiting. Then he left. The doors closed with a deep, final sound, and in the silence that followed, the Galactic Council trembled. Not because of what humanity had done, but because of what they might yet do. The rulers of the stars had seen countless species kneel. But now, for the first time, they had seen one rise. And in that rising, a new fear was born. For humanity had refused to bend, and the galaxy would never be the same.